Hello and welcome to Dialogue. Iran, for the first time, ever launched attacks on Israel with drones and missiles. Tehran said the attack was in response to a strike on its consulate in Damascus at the beginning of this month, which killed 7 officials. How will Israel respond? What are the chances this could quickly escalate into a wider conflict? For the second part of today's program, we'll talk about the visit to China by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Join us for our discussion today, live from Beijing. I'm Xu Qinduo. Joining me for the first half of today's show are Professor John Gong from the University of International Business and Economics in Beijing, Dr. Gao Luft, co-director at the Institute for the Analysis of Global Security, and Foad Izadi, associate professor of American Studies at the University of Tehran in Iran. Let's start with Professor Izadi. So, Professor, what do you make of the timing of the Iranian attacks on Saturday night, basically about 14 days after the airstrikes against the Iranian embassy in Damascus?
I think the timing is related to the attack on the Iranian consulate. If Iranian consulate was not attacked, we would not be having this show. Iranian consulate under international law is part of Iranian territory, Vienna Convention. You are not supposed to attack other countries' consulates. You're not supposed to send missiles to these consulates. You're not supposed to kill people inside. We had 7 Iranians killed. 2 of them were generals. Generals were in Syria on the invitation of the Syrian government. So this was a very serious mistake, serious crime by the genocidal regime in Israel, and the Iranian government decided to follow international law. Article 51 of the UN Charter gives countries the right to respond when they're attacked. And the timing of the attack is due to the fact that Iran had the right to defend itself, and this is, I think, what the Iranian leaders decided to do.
Right. Well, it's understandable. I mean, Iran will take action probably against the strikes on its embassy. But look, if you look at this, close look at the attacks, drones and missiles, rockets on Israel launched by Iran, many people would ask the question, and if you look at the damage in particular, it has been reportedly minimal. So people would say, was it on purpose, deliberately to limit the damage on Israeli side?
This idea that 99% of the missiles that Iran sent was intercepted the source is Israeli military. The same people that are claiming that they are the most ethical military in the world while they're committing a genocide in Gaza. So I wouldn't take their reports very seriously. There's a Hebrew word for this, haspera, which generally means false propaganda. And they're engaging in haspera. This is a propaganda ploy, I think. Iran is not interested in killing anybody anywhere, but the target was, one of the targets was the airport that was used to attack the Iranian consulate. Other targets were military targets. Iran wanted to make sure that civilians are not hurt, wanted to make sure that civilian areas are not hurt, and that's what you got.
Professor, what do you make of this round of confrontation between Iran and Israel? Is it simply between the two countries, as you said, probably tit for tat confrontation between Iran and Israel, or is it also kind of like a spillover of the Gaza conflict?
We had a UN resolution. China, Russia, France, UK, and other non-permanent members of the Security Council voted for immediate ceasefire. This is a resolution that United States abstained That's how it passed. U.S. vetoed previous resolutions at the Security Council, but this one they abstained. That UN resolution, if it was followed, if Israelis had stopped the genocide in Gaza, if they started a ceasefire, you would not have the topic of our conversation today. The fact that we are sitting and talking is due to the Israeli action. They want to continue the genocide. Netanyahu wants to expand the war. He wants to have a military confrontation between Iran and the United States. He has been wanting that since the 1990s. He wants to fight Iran using American soldiers. And so Iranian leaders, as you probably know, sent a message to Washington that U.S. should not get involved. Iran needed to respond. If Iran hadn't responded, the analysis here was that Israelis would attack inside Iran. These type of attacks would continue. So Iranian leaders, I think, wanted to send a strong message. And 2 nights ago, Iranian mission at the UN sent a report and basically said that Iran is done with responding to the attack on the consulate. So anything from now on is going to be Israel's responsibility. If they attack Iran, the message here from the Iranian leaders is going to be, you're going to see the repeat of what you saw 2 nights ago with stronger measures. This is what they have said.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Professor. Thank you for joining us. Well, Dr. Gao Luft, I want to also have your opinion on this latest episode of confrontation between Tehran and, Israel here. How serious is it?
Well, it's the first time that Israel is attacked directly by a state actor since 1991. The last time Israel faced an attack by a state actor was the first Gulf War, when Saddam Hussein launched missiles at Israel. Since then, over the past more than 30 years, all of the attacks against Israel have been done by non-state actors, Hezbollah, Hamas, and others. And some of them, if not all of them, have been supported by Iran. But this is the first time that Iran has attacked Israel directly. So in this respect, it's a first, it's a precedent, and it will certainly change a lot of the thinking, Israeli national security doctrine, as well as Iran's, because quite frankly, the results of this attack should be quite disturbing for Iran, having sent so many objects towards Israel, but almost no damage. I think Iran should also ask itself whether it's this imbalance in air defense is really something that serves the Iranian interest, because the problem is for Iran is that if Israel attacks, it could cause significant damage in Iran, because Iran has very poor air defense capability and missile defense capabilities. But if Iran attacks Israel, the results are almost zero. So I think that puts Iran at a point that it has to review its own strategy. I understand the Iranian need to react, but I don't think that Iran is better off, having let out some steam. I don't think that Iran is better off today in terms of its deterrence, because its weakness have been exposed to the entire world, while Israel's technological capabilities in thwarting these kind of attacks have been revealed to the entire world, and now everybody will have to go back to the drawing table and think how to carry out their strategies for the coming years.
But if you follow this thinking in terms of military capability, Gao, I mean, probably it's also a good thing in a sense for Iran to be aware of this, let's say, probably better than expected capability from Israelis in terms of defending themselves.
Yes, I know, but let's expand this conversation a little bit. I mean, most of the problems that Iran has today in the world, with the world, have to do with its intention or insistence on its nuclear program. That's the reason for the sanctions. That's the reason that Iranians are suffering today, for inflation, for everything that is bad in Iran is more or less as a result of this insistence on developing nuclear weapons. And I'm asking, after we've seen what we've seen, what's the justification for Iran to continue down this road when it is very clear that it will be extremely difficult for it to launch a nuclear weapon at Israel with these kind of air defenses and missile defenses? So I think a lot of people in Iran will ask the question, why bother? Why go through all this suffering and all these international sanctions, etc., when clearly we cannot harm Israel in any way through these missiles, drones, and cruise missile, etc.
Right.
So I think Iran too will have to make to review its current approach.
John, obviously there's different interpretations of this event now, but still, I mean, if you look at the result, very few people got injured in the Iranian attack there. So some say Iran launched this slow drones and missiles on purpose. Is it on purpose? And also, isn't it a good thing? Like a few people got killed. Yeah.
Well, I mean, killing fewer people is always a good thing.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. I think,
less confrontation, probably.
Yeah. Well, this is a very unfortunate event, I think, and I think China's Ministry Foreign Affairs spokesperson has already said that it's a grave concern for the latest development, and it hopes that relevant parties will be refraining from further escalation. And I certainly hope so. I think that Israel does have a venerable technology in terms of missile defense. The Iron Dome thing. It's it has been proven to be quite effective. But on the other hand, I think Iranian missile development in the past few years has also been quite impressive. And I'm not a military expert here, but I think both countries are making progress in their respective military technologies. But at the end of the day, I think Israel and Iranians have to live together. They are only a few hundred miles apart, and both countries are within missile range. I think the objective of each side of trying to wipe off each country from face of the earth is just totally nonsense to me. So I think Israel has bombed their embassy, the Iranian embassy. Iranian has retaliated, and I hope we can close this chapter and move on. Definitely, we don't want to see a further escalation of events over there.
Right. The U.S. basically, President Biden has made it clear that Israel should see it as a win and not to step further in launching offensive against the Iranians. So looking at this politics, domestic politics in Israel, how likely is it that we will call it a day that's over?
Well, first of all, let me say that I totally agree with Biden's policy of restraining Israel from further escalation. But let me also point out that his motivation is more than just motivated by American national interest. There's a lot to do with, for example, with his presidential campaign. As we all know, the Democratic Party is very much polarized, and there's a very large wing within the party that is firmly against the idea of further escalation, right? Yeah. So they want the Gaza thing to stop. On the other hand, I think. In Israel, there is certain pushback. There are radical people in Israel who want to say that, we have the right to defend ourselves, and, American shouldn't have this kind of a control over us. But at the end of the day, I think Israel is really still very much constrained by American policy, because after all, the country is so much heavily dependent on American aid.
So briefly, Gao, how big a factor is the U.S. influence in Israel's decision to launch offensive or not to launch offensive here?
Oh, it's a very big factor here. Of course, don't forget Israel still has two big fish to fry. One is having to do with Hamas in Gaza. Another one has to do with Lebanon, the northern border. These are two big problems. both of them require American involvement. So Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu, cannot afford to snub Biden and say, look, thank you very much for helping us with the Iranians, but from now on we are going to do what we want. That's not how it works. So, so obviously Netanyahu will have to be considerate of the Americans and not surprise them again. One of the most important things is to share with the Americans what the Israelis are about to do, so they don't get caught by surprise, especially at a time like this. And let's not forget that what Biden is most concerned about is an oil price hike, which could undo all of his economic achievements prior to the election. So if there is a war with Iran, oil prices could go up. There could be a lot of trouble, and that could lead to changes in American politics. And that's why I think the Israelis will be very, very attuned to American concerns.
All right. Thank you, Gao. Thank you for joining us.